Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm just going to go ahead and give 1 minute more. I see we have a few people still logging in and joining us. We'll give them a chance to join, and then we'll go ahead and begin in just a moment. Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and get started then. So first of all, let me welcome you to our presentation today on top 7 vacations to take in 2020 and 2021. I should also go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Andy Channel. I'm actually the Vice President of Product over here at Railbookers and Amtrak Vacations, Yankee Leisure Group. And I'll be your host for today. So I'm glad to be able to share a little bit with each and every one of you, and thank you for joining. I'm going to go ahead and begin by explaining a little bit what you should know before we get started. So on your presentation window there over on the right side, over on the little bar, you're going to see an indicator. It shows you where you can download your free handouts. So information from today's presentation that is available to you. Also, there's that little questions box during the presentation. Different points, I may have a couple of questions for you, and you may have a few for me, and we'll use that questions box to share your questions and answers and mine as well. So as we're getting started, it makes sense to go ahead and talk a little bit about who Yankee Leisure Group is and who we are. And who is Yankee Leisure Group? Well, we've been around since 1972 when our first brand, Yankee Holidays, was launched. Today we operate 3 brands: Amtrak Vacations, Yankee Holidays, our original, and of course Railbookers, the presentation we're featuring today. We also operate a number of specialized products under those brands. For example, under Railbookers, we also offer Via Rail Vacations, Eurostar Vacations, Trenitalia Vacations, and more. These are focused around destinations our customers love and experiences and trains our customers really love. And speaking of love, why do travelers love booking with Railbookers? Let's talk about some of the highlights that are worth mentioning. These are the reasons customers consistently tell us they enjoy working with our company. So what are those reasons? Well, in speaking of our customers and what they value, it comes down to a number of key points. Average hold time equals 3 seconds. So accessibility, the ability to actually reach a consultant, reach your expert, and reach your support at any time. We are highly accessible with an average phone hold time of 3 seconds, even now. Bucket list experiences. What we offer are not just amazing bucket list destinations either. It's train journeys, iconic travel experiences, sightseeing. Bucket list experiences across the board is what our vacation packages are all about, what our vacations are really focused on. Our flexible booking policy, and I'm going to come back to that point in detail in a moment, but flexibility around booking and changing trips, which I'm going to talk about in greater detail. Freedom and flexibility. Now, all of our holidays are independent travel experiences. Now, what does that mean? That means that while you do have a travel consultant, a vacation expert on our side who's taking care of the logistics, making sure your trains are booked, making sure your hotels, your sightseeing, all that is arranged for you. Because there's no group, because there's no leader, and you're doing this on your own with our experience backing it up and setting up the trip for you, it means you go when you want to. You make the trip your own. You're not tied to anybody else's schedule but your own and what we've planned. The scenic way to travel. Here's a funny thing you probably never ever heard somebody say coming back from a vacation. At least me personally, I've never heard someone come back from their vacation and tell me, I just had the most amazing flight, right? Like you've never heard that. I will tell you, with train trips, with train vacations, it's a very different experiences. And talking to customers, I've had people come back and tell me, yeah, the destination was great. The city was great, Chicago or London, but what an amazing train journey from point X to Y. It's absolutely the type of vacation for someone who is not just who appreciates that the journey is part of the holiday and the vacation trip they're taking, that it is meant to be special, not just an incidental and inconvenient part of getting to something they want to see. Vacations by train are absolutely explorations from end to end, all the way through. Room to roam. Unlike being on an airline and in small confined seats and kind of tied to that and seatbelt lights on and all that sort of thing, traveling by train is a much more comfortable experience. Room to roam is a big part of that. You have the flexibility to get up out of your seat, to go down the cafe car, to go down the dining car, just to walk and stretch your legs, to go socialize with other passengers in different parts of the train. You absolutely have a lot more room to get up, explore, and enjoy the experience of traveling when you're traveling on a vacation train. A train vacation with us. And incidentally, while I mentioned seating, it's another important point. Seats on the trains are usually 2x2 or sometimes 2x1, meaning there's rarely a middle seat. Your seating is much more spacious and comfortable. There are tables in front of you in many cases, particularly if you reserve the right seat, which our staff can help you arrange. So it's a much, much more comfortable experience to travel on a train vacation. And customizable itineraries. And I'll touch on this one in greater detail, but the truth is, while we have some wonderful set itineraries for you, we can make that trip your own. We can modify it, adjust it, expand it, whatever makes sense to you. We have so much flexibility in the arrangements. We're happy to make the trip truly fit your desires. It's also worth mentioning that our team is a global team. So we're here to support you. We have offices and staff in Laguna Hills, California, Toronto, Canada, Massachusetts, London, and Sydney, Australia. So wherever you're traveling to, there are staff on hand available to support you, to assist you, and glad to do so. Now, I touched on our flexible booking policy a moment ago, and I promised I'd come back to it in greater detail. And this is definitely worth mentioning. And this is our flexible booking policy for new reservations and for existing. Let me touch on each very quickly. So for new reservations, anything made now, you can change your travel dates or cancel your vacation up until 5 days prior to departure without incurring any change or cancellation fees. What does that mean? That means if you book a holiday to Canada or to Switzerland, you book a vacation to Scandinavia, and you get closer to travel, as long as we know by up to 5 days prior to departure that you're not going to be able to go, the full value of your trip without applying any cancellation or change fees can be moved to a new holiday within 2 years. It can be the same trip. It can be a different trip. If you were going to Italy and now you want to go to the Grand Canyon, you're going to Canada, now you want to go to Scandinavia, it does not matter where. Full value is transferred over with no penalty whatsoever. The same thing is true of any existing reservation. So if those of you who already have a vacation planned with us and are looking at the next one, the same rule will apply for your existing trip, just so you know. Now, it's worth mentioning too, and I've touched on it, having experts in your corner and our staff standing by to assist you. That spider web of colored lines that you see there on that map, that is the European rail system. But don't worry, folks. We're going to do the hard part for you with all the planning and scheduling so you can focus on the destinations, the beautiful sightseeing experiences you're going to enjoy. We take the headache out of this completely for you. Our longstanding relationship and partnership with all rail providers around the world means that our team of experts is taking care of every little bit. Basically, the idea is, why worry when you can have one of our experts do all the planning, take care of all the details, and you just enjoy. Even Canada. Our partnership with Via Rail means that we actually have access to trains, and this is true all over the world. We book up to 2 years out. Our partnership with Via means we get exclusive access over a year before this rail is even available to others. So meaning over a year before this trip could be booked by anybody in the public, we can actually book and guarantee your space, your pricing, the destinations you want, all that well in advance. And it's not just Via Rail. I mentioned our partnerships with rail operators and rail providers around the world. This is just a small sampling of our direct partnerships. We're very proud of our relationship to these rail companies and our expertise in not only their trains, but the vacations people take on them. And what is a vacation with Railbookers? Obviously train comes to mind, and we've talked about trains a fair bit. But to keep it straight, what we're actually selling as a Railbookers vacation is the whole vacation itself, every bit. Meaning, we're booking and coordinating your rail, of course, but also your hotels, the sightseeing experiences, often with preferred access, which I'll touch on again later, ferries and other forms of transportation, transfers, some dining experiences. In short, we're taking care of everything for you. We basically free you to enjoy the vacation. We take care of the unfun part of planning and coordinating everything. And preferred access, I've touched on that twice now, and I do think it's worth coming back to, especially for anybody who's new to these experiences. That little picture you see there on the left, that is a small piece of the line to get into the Coliseum. And for those of you who have traveled throughout Europe or traveled to some of these other key locations and attractions, whether it's the Colosseum, whether it's the London Eye, whether it's the Vatican museums, I will tell you, waits in some of these destinations, not even when it's busy season, can be a 2-hour plus affair. Uh, Having an expert book you and get you preferred access and take care of all those important, small but important details is a big part of what our experts will do when they're planning your vacation trip. Now, before we go into itineraries, what are some important things you do want to know about rail travel? Some common questions. Most people want to know what the train experience is like and have featured in the image there just a handful of different train arrangements from our partners. Uh, Basically, there's a lot of similarity between European trains, and some of that carries over to North American trains, such as Canada as well. Generally, there's a standard and a first class. Standard being a 2x2 configuration of seating, typically, meaning 2 seats on one side of the aisle, 2 seats on the other. Oftentimes, that will come with outlets at the seats, you can charge and that sort of thing. First class provides a little bit more leg room. Typically, the seating is 2x1, meaning 2 seats on one side, 1 seat on the other side, so you have a little more space. It typically is a quieter experience, as there are generally less full cars. Sometimes that means a snack or light meal being included or a beverage. Another important thing to note is that trains in Europe are frequent and they're very much on time. And because there's a lot of times in frequency and a lot to know in terms of when you need a seat reservation, when you don't, instead of trying to figure all that out on your own, basically our consultants are there to support you and make sure that those little details, all but important details, are taken care of. Luggage, last thing I'll mention on the training experience, luggage typically stored above your seat. You can see a little bit some of those there, as well as there are typically luggage racks of one end or both ends of the car, depending on what train we're talking about. Luggage allowances are not set, so technically you can bring as much as you feel is appropriate. Generally, people will travel a little later on the trains, just so you know. One more point on trains too, I promise is the last one. Stations. Sometimes I'll get questions. I'm traveling through several different countries. I'm to places that speak French and German and Hungarian and Czech. And be able to understand all that. Well, not all that planning and all those instructions for us in advance before go. But you'll find when you get to the stations, most everything is lettered and populated in not only the local language, but having traveled a good bit of the rail system throughout the world, I will tell you, English tends to be universal as far as travel instructions, signage, and so forth. So easy to do once you have somebody plan it all out right for you. It is important to note too, it's not just the major national trains we have direct partnerships, but also with a lot of luxury and family operators around the world, whether it's the Orient Express, the Golden Eagle, South African train out near in Canada. We really work with all the train operators around the world, and that relationship translates to an excellent vacation when we plan your experience for you. What's our staff experts, you may ask? What makes them so knowledgeable about trains, make a vacation work by rail? Well, it sounds trite, but our staff every year is out experiencing the rail, our rail partners, our sightseeing experiences, everything from one corner of the globe to the other, learning firsthand experience, mastering that information. So they're there as a resource and they plan the vacation because we've all experienced it first. Yes, that includes yours truly. As I mentioned, I've traveled pretty extensively and definitely am very familiar with the ins and outs of rail vacations around the globe. So before we continue any further, before we start talking about the top 7 trips for 2020 and 2021, I want to ask all of you a question. And I'm going to ask you to answer this one for me. And I'll give everybody a chance to answer this. But if you see that little questions box I pointed out before, I'm going to ask you to use that and let me know what would be your dream vacation. And please go ahead and type it in there. I'm looking for it. I can see a couple answers popping up already. But what would be your dream vacation if you could go anywhere at all in the world? And if you're like me, the minute you finish one trip, you start thinking about the next, or in some cases, even earlier than that. And certainly right now, while we're all cooped up to a greater or lesser extent, planning and dreaming for the future seems to be a big part of what we're all excited about, which if you're like me, you're also very thrilled to be able to have a discussion like this and plan for the future and start thinking about upcoming trips. And thank you. I see some excellent responses popping up. I see Spain in there. I see Switzerland, both amazing train destinations. Switzerland is literally made for trains. Not only are there trains everywhere, but they take you through some of the most breathtaking scenery I've ever seen. Spain, certainly a beautiful number of train journeys there. I see Alaska coming up. We're going to touch on Alaska. That's actually an interesting one later on. Russia, yep, another amazing set of train destinations, one of which is featured in our presentation today. We'll talk about that. Norway, absolutely beautiful. I've had a chance to do train journeys throughout Norway. I highly recommend that. Wow, there's some variety here. Well, thank you, everybody. That's very exciting and inspiring to see how much you're thinking about traveling, where you're looking to go. Uh, beautiful, beautiful list. Why don't we then go ahead? Let's start talking about our top 7. What we want to suggest to you is our top 7 trips for 2020 and 2021, based on what customers like yourselves are telling us. Let's go ahead and begin. So the first one I want to talk to you about is our Grand London and Paris. It's a 7-day journey across 2 of the best loved cities people want to visit, most iconic cities people want to visit when they travel to Europe. I can't think of any 2 better than London and Paris. Basically, you begin in London. You're visiting historic attractions such as the Tower of London and Big Ben. We have you cruising along the River Thames. Included in your vacation is a number of popular admissions choices, along with your hotels and sightseeing. We also include one of those preferred access experiences where we give you skip the line access to the London Eye, so you don't have to wait several hours to go get that amazing view from the top of the Eye. I've had a chance to do it several times myself, and I will tell you the angle you have to views along the Thames and across London. You can see Buckingham Palace from the top. You're definitely going to want to do it, and you're most definitely not going to want to wait in the long line to do it. So that's included by us for you. Next, you're going to take a train beneath the English Channel on over to Paris on the Eurostar, where of course you're going to take in amazing cultural experiences, visit the Louvre, enjoy some amazing food. We include access to some of the best for you, particularly where you have skip the line access to the Eiffel Tower. So again, we're talking about 2 of the things everybody wants to do when they go to London and Paris. Not only are they included for you, along with a number of other admissions and sightseeing, they are also made easy by preferred access to the top. So you're not going to wait in line with everybody else. And I have to say, there's a reason why this trip is so popular for 2020 and 2021. Again, are there 2 cities with more to offer, more history, more name recognition, more wow factor than London and Paris? And my answer is I don't think so. So it's a great trip. I highly recommend it. And most importantly, our customers are telling us this is a top trip for 2020 and 2021. Now, I have a quick trivia question for all of you. And again, you can use that questions column to answer. And I'm curious to see how many people get this one right. So my question for all of you is, who can tell me what the official name for the tunnel is that runs under the English Channel from Paris to London? So we just mentioned you'd be taking the train from London to Paris on the Eurostar, and it goes under the English Channel in a long tunnel that runs under the sea. Can anyone tell me what the official name is for that tunnel? And I'll give you a moment to answer that. And I'll tell you, it's a very beautiful train experience. You start off in London, you get a little bit of the English countryside. It's a very quick trip, about 2 hours on into Paris, a little over 2 hours on into Paris. It flies by. You come out on the other side in France, go straight through the country and right into the capital. I see a few answers coming up now. Let me give everybody another couple of seconds. Okay, the majority seem to be answering Channel. So let me tell you, for those of you who answered the Channel, that is not correct. That is actually the nickname given to what is otherwise officially and not so very imaginatively called the Channel Tunnel. So technically it's the Channel Tunnel. The nickname out there is the Channel, which is probably the way most of us in America would know it by name. Okay, let's continue on. So another great highlight featuring London, but also 3 other beautiful cities in Ireland and the UK is Dublin, London, and Edinburgh. Basically, you're going to travel the charming countryside of Ireland, England, and Scotland and explore 3 great cities while you're doing it. So it starts off in Dublin, where you get to immerse yourself in the culture and history of the city, which is the capital of the Emerald Isle. And you're also going to take a day trip out to Blarney Castle to go kiss the Blarney Stone and see a little bit of the Irish countryside. Once you've had your exploration of Dublin and Ireland, you're going to board a ferry and cross over to the UK, where you board train for London, traveling cross country. You'll explore all the capital has to offer, and we talked about that. London's got some great sites and attractions, world-class museums, great city. And then after your 3 nights in London, you continue north across the charming English countryside on up to Scotland, where you'll have a chance to stop and explore Edinburgh and Edinburgh Castle, as well as the romantic landscape of the Scottish Highlands. Ireland and the UK are consistently amongst our most beloved destinations, and it's no surprise why. Whether it's charming countryside, friendly people, castles, history, culture, and of course the highlight of the modern world with some of the attractions in London. These places have everything you're going to want for a great vacation. No surprise why this one is coming up very, very popular for 2020 and 2021. Now, for those of you thinking something a little further east, something a little different, Moscow and St. Petersburg may be a great option for you, and it's proven to be a very popular itinerary for this coming year. It begins in Moscow. You'll actually start off, you'll have a chance to explore Red Square, see St. Basil's, the famous cathedral. You'll actually explore the capital and one of the oldest cities in Russia. It basically has a myriad of historically rich museums, landmarks, attractions, a wealth of culture you're not going to forget. After exploring Moscow, you board the train and continue northwest to St. Petersburg, the ancient capital of Russia, or was for a very, very long time until the end of the Russian Empire. And as such, St. Petersburg is full of a wealth of amazing imperial era architecture, whether it's winter palaces or any of the beautiful landmarks that go back to the days of the czars. St. Petersburg is spectacular. It's also situated right on the Baltic Sea with some amazing seaside views. And one of the best and most loved art galleries in the world, the Hermitage, which is also located in St. Petersburg, is there and included for your sightseeing entertainment. So you take in these two great cities connected by a wonderful train journey across the Russian countryside, a good mix of beautiful scenery, history, culture. I highly recommend it. That's Moscow and St. Petersburg. And I have to say, St. Basil's, what you see there featured on the right, it has to be one of the most iconic landmarks in the entire world. It's an architectural masterpiece, and you're going to get a chance to see it up close and personal if this is the vacation for you for next year. Now, jumping across the pond back to North America, well, I have to say, Canada, and I've had a chance to experience a lot of Canada and a lot of it by train. There's a reason why Canadian vacations by rail are popular every single year. We're going to talk a little bit about why. But this trip in particular, Grand Circle, the Canadian Rockies, always one of our best sellers, continuing to be a bestseller for 2020 and 2021. And there's good reason for that. And basically what it allows you to do is experience the splendor of the Canadian Rockies, traveling by two different trains that are both iconic in their own way. The luxury train experience of Rocky Mountaineer, and the classic overnight train journey that goes with Via Rail in Canada. So basically you begin in Vancouver, and then you travel into the Canadian Rockies, following the Fraser River, in through the canyons, up and through the mountain. You end that journey in Banff. We get a chance to get out and explore this amazing mountain town surrounded and ringed by snow-capped mountains, lakes, a great, great destination. From there, we have you on an exploration. You take a sightseeing tour that we've set up and included for you that brings you all through the region to waterfalls, lakes, mountains. You stop at historic Lake Louise, which everybody must see at least once on their trip. You get a chance to explore this whole region, and then you continue north from there towards Jasper, Alberta, taking the famous Icefields Parkway, where we have a sightseeing tour and transfer included that takes you all along valley after valley full of huge soaring mountains, forests, rivers. I have to tell you, some of the best wildlife viewing I've seen anywhere in the world. And I mean, everything you can think of is possible on this trip from wildlife. We're talking about bears, deer, elk, mountain goats, you name it. The wildlife sightseeing is hugely abundant. In fact, when you're in Jasper, when you reach the town at the northern terminus, they're very often in town. The first time I ever went there were literally herds of elk walking through the town the first moment I got off the train. Like, got off the train, look right, there's the elk. So you'll get to Jasper, stop for a night there, then board Via Rail and spend one night returning back to Vancouver. Board the Via Rail training, where you get that classic onboard sleeper train experience on the train, and end your trip in Vancouver on the other end. If you're going to go explore Canada, this is one of the best ways to do it. There's a reason it's so popular. It's also one of those destinations where I have to say, people always say, oh, the pictures don't do it justice. These pictures are pretty good, and yet the pictures still don't do it justice, that's for sure. Definitely getting up close and seeing it is something to never be forgotten. That bluish, greenish hue to the water is so much more vivid in real life. And if you're going to look at a Canadian journey, this is the one I would pick. Now, earlier on, I touched on Alaska. And I mentioned that Alaska was an interesting choice, and it really is. And we're seeing so much interest in Alaska heading into next year. And this itinerary in particular, Denali Express with Alaska Railroad, gives you a chance to explore the best of Alaska on a 6-day trip that starts and ends in Anchorage with an exploration by train out to Denali National Park. So what does that look like? So you start in Anchorage, you explore the city a little bit, then you board the Alaska Railroad for this scenic trip cross country. So through the Alaskan wilderness, on out to Denali National Park. You spend a couple of nights there. We have a sightseeing tour to take you into the park itself with views of Mount Denali, all through this amazing, amazing landscape that is truly unforgettable. After exploring all the beauty of Denali National Park, its forests, its mountains, its wildlife, you'll reboard the Alaska Railroad, heading on bank to Anchorage for another evening where you'll stop, rest up, and continue your journey home, having an absolutely unparalleled sightseeing experience. It's unlike anything I'm sure you've ever seen before. And I mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. It's not just the destinations. The views from the train are hard to find anywhere else. In fact, there are certain pieces of countryside, whether it's in Europe or North America or elsewhere, that are really only accessible by train. And having the chance to sit in a comfortable seat, have some amazing food, and watch all this scenery come to you out the window, there's nothing like it, folks. I really have to express that so strongly. The journey itself is actually an amazing part of your vacation. Now, I mentioned earlier too customization, and that was possible. And I can see a couple questions pop up. And one of the things that's probably worth mentioning is, what does it mean to customize a trip? Like when I say you can customize or adjust a trip, what does that mean? So let's talk about that. It can be any number of things. The answer is we can absolutely make this trip just about anything you want it to be. It's independent, so variations can be modified to suit your taste. Extra destinations you want to explore? No problem, we can add them. Do you want to add in return trains to get back to the beginning? We can certainly do that. Do you want additional sightseeing included? There's more you'd like to explore or extra nights? Yeah, no problem. Of course we can. Even flipping the trip around. If you're coming at it from a different way, east to west, north to south, we can completely reverse the whole itinerary and make it work for your scheduling, your flights, your trains, your approach, where you're starting out from. So customization gives us a lot of leeway to really fit the trip to your needs and your wishes. We're happy to do it. Now, continuing back to popular itineraries. And one last thing, folks, too, before I continue on with our top 7, I should mention these are our top 7. These are only 7 of a great selection we have of all different vacations. Whether you're looking, and I saw one question like, hey, do we have other Alaska itineraries in Anchorage, Denali? We absolutely do. Do we have other trips throughout Europe? Do we have other trips throughout the States? Absolutely, we do. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but we're really showing you just the top 7 that we see trending right now, not the whole selection. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at all options when considering your trip, or definitely contact one of our consultants to walk you through the different possibilities and what recommends one over another. Now, national parks of the Southwest Bryson and Zion to the Grand Canyon. So for those looking at amazing outdoor explorations, breathtaking landscapes, spectacular scenery, you would be hard pressed to top this itinerary. You're experiencing multiple national parks over the course of the week. You're seeing Capitol Reef, you're seeing Bryce Canyon, you're seeing Zion National Park, you're visiting the Grand Canyon. Although it's not a national park, Lake Powell is one of those spectacular outdoor scenes that you have to visit at least once in your life. There is so much to see and explore, and this train journey definitely brings all those things to you. And basically the way it works is you start out from Chicago, you take one of my favorite train journeys anywhere in the world, and I've traveled quite a few of them, from Chicago out to Grand Junction. Basically, this one is just about every type of scenery you could imagine. You start off in the Great Plains, and by the time you wake up the next morning after you've had your onboard sleeping experience, you're heading into the Rocky Mountains. You go through canyon country before you end up in western Colorado as the canyons give way to desert. And from there, after your one-night stay, our sightseeing experience picks you up, brings you through the best parks of Utah and Arizona, exploring the Grand Canyon, Lake Powell, as I mentioned, before returning you back to Chicago by a different train route. 2 amazing sightseeing trains, a number of the best national parks in North America. If you're looking for a beautiful Southwestern experience with unparalleled views, this is your trip. I highly recommend it. There's a reason this one is so popular, and I predict it's going to continue to be for 2020 and into 2021. That's what we're seeing right now. It is no surprise to me. And no discussion of great destinations will be complete in North America without talking about the trip we're going to feature right here, which is our Glacier National Park Express. Two of America's greatest cities, full of life, art, culture, architecture. At the beginning and end of a trip to one of our consistently most popular national park destinations, Glacier National. It's a 10-day trip. Begins in Chicago, where you'll enjoy an architecture sightseeing cruise along the Chicago River. Maybe take yourself out some fine Italian dining or a deep dish pizza. Then you're going to board the train for an overnight experience across the north of America. You're going to go through the Badlands, up through the Lakes region in Wisconsin and Minnesota, before arriving to Glacier National Park. Now, this is a destination truly made for train travelers. When you arrive to Glacier National Park, you actually get off the train and it's a 209-step walk. No joke, 209-step walk from the train platform to the front door of the lodge. They take your luggage for you, whisk it away, bring you in. You walk up the lawn, taking in the mountain views all around you. It could not be more perfect. We have you there for 3 nights. While there, your sightseeing is taken care of. So you're going to explore the park by land on one of the famous red jammer buses that are so iconic to Glacier National Park. They've been in operation for years, for decades really, doing sightseeing this way. When the weather's nice, they roll back the top so you can soak in all that fresh mountain air. They're going to take you along famous Going to the Sun Road, which winds its way along the cliffs and mountainsides all through the park. Bring you to beautiful Lake McDonald and High Logan Pass, hopefully spotting some wildlife along the way. You can explore the park by water with a cruise along Two Medicine Lake, taking you into the park, surrounded by mountains. This is one of the best spots in the park for wildlife spotting. And I've mentioned wildlife, but the shores of the lake are very commonly spots to sight deer, elk, and other wildlife that are native to the area. And after exploring this impressive destination high in the Rocky Mountains, you're going to reboard the train, continue west through the Cascades, and on into Seattle for a 2-night stay. Before you wrap up your vacation, you'll have a chance to explore this wonderful city by the water, maybe visit Pike Place Market, watch them throw the fish. It's a great city. Head up the Space Needle for views of Elliott Bay and distant Mount Rainier and Mount Rainier National Park to wrap up your vacation. Again, it's worth mentioning, Glacier National Park, every single year, one of our most popular national park destinations. In Chicago and Seattle, 2 fantastic cities to begin and end your journey across America with. I highly recommend it. Now, we've talked quite a bit about our best loved vacations, our top 7 for next year. We've talked about the benefits of booking us. We've talked about different types of trains. But why take the train in general? What is the appeal? Well, we've touched on it a little bit, but I do want to mention it one more time. And that is, it's everything, folks. It's the comfortable seating. It's the fine dining to be had on many of the trains. In fact, dining on board most of the trains I've been on is definitely not what you think of when you think of travel. Like if you've had airline food, this is not airline food. You're having chef prepared meals on board. You're having a fine glass of wine. Really enjoying a comfortable seating arrangement, unlike anything on an airplane. It's literally like being taken to the scenery. It's rolling by outside the window. And that picture on the right there, I think, does a fantastic job of illustrating the type of experience you have on board the train. Me, I'm glued to the window the whole time I'm on board with camera in hand. Even down to little things. It can be quiet, relaxing. You can find a nice quiet spot, whether it's in your own seat or a private room on a Via Rail train or in a lounge or observation car to enjoy the scenery, camera in hand or book in hand. Or if you're like me and you're a bit more of a social butterfly and you love talking and meeting people from all over, it's a very social environment where you get a chance to interact with travelers from all over the world. So now you've seen so much of what we're seeing is popular for next year, some of our best attractions, some of which are featured here on the slide, but we've gone into detail on a number of those itineraries. Again, just a small sampling of what we do. But I'm curious, having seen all that now, what are you interested in? Which destination really wowed you or impressed you? And if it wasn't seen here, definitely love to talk to you more about it. We're here to help you make that once in a lifetime trip happen. A couple of things I do want to mention. We're very proud of our long history of supporting rail vacations around the world and our customers traveling. We've sent thousands of them, folks, and we're hoping to be able to offer you the same amazing convenience and vacation experience that so many other customers have had with us. If you're interested in seeing more of those vacations that I mentioned, we have more of that selection. I encourage you to visit us at railbookers.com. You'll be able to find not only information on trip planning and about us in general and special offers, but our different destinations, different vacations, the whole selection of what we have to offer. I also recommend reaching to us at 1-888-829-3040. Finding what you're interested in online is a great starting point, but I often find it's best to speak with one of our consultants to get the benefit of their expertise and firsthand knowledge of how all this works and planning that unforgettable vacation experience you're really looking for. And just to touch on it again one more time, why travelers love booking with Railbookers. It's the accessibility of getting to us, that average hold time of 3 seconds with a vacation and rail expert who's there in your corner to help you. It's the bucket list experiences both on board the train and when you get off. It's that flexible booking policy, the ability to make adjustments when your travel plans need to change with as little hassle and fuss as possible. It's the free flexibility to have a trip and have it coordinated and planned for you, but not be tied to somebody else's agenda and itinerary. Absolutely, absolutely unparalleled sightseeing from the train. Big part of why people like what we do. The room to roam and the comfort on board, and the fact that we can truly tailor the experience and customize it to your taste. And we're proud to have been recognized for our success and for our service our customers in a number of ways with award recognition that we take. One last thing to revisit from earlier, and that is our flexible booking policy, which we mentioned again as one of our best reasons to book with us. A reservation can change travel dates or cancel the vacation up until 5 days prior to departure with no change fees, penalties, cancellation fees, anything like that. Your full value of your trip can be rebooked for any time within 24 months. It doesn't even have to be the same nation, and that is true of existing reservations right now as well. Folks, when you're ready, we're ready. All of us are thinking of the future and for something new and looking forward to future trips and travel. And thank you for joining us to share and to think a little bit about what's on your mind. When you're ready to go, we are here to help you, folks. Don't forget, when I've wrapped up, you can download your free handouts right there on. In a moment, I'm going to take some questions, and I see coming in already. So any question you'd like to ask, go ahead and answer as many of those as I can with the time I have. For those of you, if I do not, for some reason, to your full question, if I don't get to your full question, I will make sure we follow up with you to get the information you're looking for to you. So why don't we go ahead and begin there? Why don't you all go ahead and any question you want to ask me, just throw it right in there on the bottom right. And again, I can see a few coming in right now. I'll do my best to answer as many as possible. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll grab a few of these. Tim wants to know, how far in advance is it possible to book? If I'm looking for a trip next year, when can I go make that happen? Common question, and thank you for asking it. The reality is we book up to 2 years out. In fact, if you think back to earlier on, I mentioned those relationships to the rail companies, which also extends to our hotels and sightseeing partners. Those special relationships means that we actually have the ability to book this even before you could find it yourself. In some cases, not only months and weeks, by years. We booked even now, not only for this summer, later this year, all through 2021 and even into 2022. So anytime within the next 24 months, we can book. And what I recommend, sometimes people will also ask the question, Tim, and say, hey, when is the best time to book? Rail is very much like airline pricing in the sense that as space starts to sell, the price goes one way and that's up. It's based on availability. So the thing I tell everybody is once you know you want to go, it will never be cheaper to book than that day you decide. So take a look, decide what you want, make sure it's the right trip for you. But the minute you're sure, that's when you want to book it. Okay, I've got a few more questions out here coming in still. Can I book online? Okay, good question. You can definitely shop online. We have a huge selection of products. As I mentioned, what we saw today was just a small popular sample off the top of what we do. I encourage you to go online and take a look and see what interests you, whether it's key destinations, accommodations, particular train routes, whatever is interesting to you. What I also recommend is generally our customers will still call in, and that number is there again, that 888-829-3040. Most of our customers still want to talk to an expert consultant who can walk them through the details, answer the question, and give them the benefit of their wisdom and experience and knowledge when it comes to a rail vacation. So definitely take a look online and get some great ideas and a great start there, and then I would reach out to our team for further assistance from that point. They'll also help you to make sure you find the best rates and availability. Okay, time for a couple more. How can I order a brochure? Let me go ahead and take a look at that one for you. How can I order a brochure? Okay, definitely you can do that on the website. Although I mentioned the website itself is really the best brochure. Our brochure is really just going to be a selection, similar to what we did today on our most popular, although a little larger. I would encourage you to stay most up to date is to visit our website for options. However, if you do want a brochure in hand, you'll find links all over the website too to allow you to click through, enter your information and address, and have one sent right out to you. Okay, probably a time for one more question or two. I see a few popping up. Uh, Deposit questions. I see a couple different versions of this question from a few of you out there. I see one from Nora. I see, okay, let me answer this question. And thank you, Nora. Thank you, everyone, for asking a couple of different ways. So let me kind of try to put this together in one answer for you. So can you pay in installments? What is due? I saw a question on deposit. So in terms of payment, when you want to book your trip and reserve your space and hotels and all that sort of thing, you do put a deposit down. It's typically $250 per person, and the final payment is due 90 days prior to departure. And you're free within that to pay it in installments up to that point. You're free to pay it all in one remaining lump sum at 90 days. There's a lot of flexibility in how that works, but it starts with that deposit of about $250 per person. It ends at 90 days when final payment is due. And however you choose to pay in between, we're very flexible. Okay, let's see if I can get one more question in before we wrap up. Am I limited to the hotels I see on your website? How big is the selection? It is also a very good question. And thank you, Roger, for it. It's, how should I answer this? We have lots of hotel options. They run 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. That doesn't mean we book every hotel that's out there, but I would say this. Our consultants are very good at looking through our selection of hotels, asking the right questions to figure out what is a perfect fit for you, and then identifying the right ones to make for an amazing vacation experience. We want to make sure you're perfectly happy with the place you're going to be staying, and we have a good enough selection to handle that in every destination that we operate. Okay. Roger, thanks for that question. Thanks everybody for the questions. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today's presentation. I am going to go ahead and wrap up. But I did want to stop one more time and say thank you for joining us. And I mean that sincerely. I love to talk about travel. I've had the benefit of being able to experience so much of the world by train. And we take great pride and great joy in being able to do the same for others. So thank you for spending some time to learn a little bit more, for your interest in travel. Definitely reach out to us, visit our website, give us a call, that number at the bottom there, 888-829-3040. Our experts are standing by and they're ready to help you in any way they can to plan your dream vacation. Folks, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and have an amazing vacation this year. We'll see you soon.